Hey, yo, welcome to the Big Joker podcast. You were very excited. Very special guest. Of course, my name is Ishmael Trainer. I got my man, Rob Watson, and he has a special guest with us. Rob, let's introduce our special guest, Rob.
Yes, sir. I'm very excited to introduce tonight's guest. The first guest I'm going to introduce to you is near and dear to me, as he's helped me along life's way. Probably one of the most influential people in my life, helped shape my life. I'm talking about my OG and big brother, Damon Watson. Welcome to have you. Yes, sir.
How y'all doing? Appreciate being appreciate being invited. That was a pretty good intro.
Wait a second. I was glad it's being recorded. I was like, one thing real quick. I remember like when we was all like in high school, D was older than us. We all looked up to him. He always is sharp with everything, with the knowledge and all the nice cars and everything else. So we appreciate you, man. So thank you. Appreciate you, D.
Yeah. Hey, I'm glad this is being recorded. I'm going to have to play this for my wife later. Show how great I am.
Yes,
That's pretty
sir.
cool. Well, I brought a guest with me. When y'all reached out and said, hey, one of the things we want to talk about that kind of impacts our community is being able to express emotions, or men feeling like they're too masculine to go to counseling and things like that. And, I had a situation in my life where I wasn't necessarily looking for a therapist. I was more or less looking for a mentor. I mean, that's what my whole life has been about. How I became successful is having mentors. And I stumbled upon one. Didn't mean to meet him, but the Lord has a way of working things out. And I met a great guy. His name's Dr. Glenn Hill. I call him Dr. G around the house here. He probably doesn't know that. But he's as a mentor, instead of saying, hey, how do you feel about that? Tell me all this stuff. What he really does is he gives you the tools to be able to process all these different things on your own, which is pretty amazing, because sometimes, you don't want to process things that are deep to you or private to you in front of somebody. And he doesn't require that. He just gives you the tools to be able to do it. So I invited Dr. Glenn Hill here to talk to us a little bit about it in his company called Connection Codes. And he's excited just to have an open discussion and kind of talk about all the different things that might be going on.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you. I'm honored to be here. This is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and giving us just a tip of the iceberg on, your heartbeat and why you decided to choose the field that you chose.
Yeah. Well, my disastrous life led to us trying to figure out what the hell had happened. Are we allowed to use profanity here? Sorry.
Go ahead, man. You good, man. You good.
Because my wife and I have been married coming up on 42 years, and 24 hours before our wedding, we were excited about happily ever after. And 48 hours after our wedding, we were like, what? I was 20 years old. We had just signed a 70-year contract. I figured I'd die when I was 90, although at that point I was hoping it'd be sooner, because we just didn't have a clue. I mean, we missed each other so horribly, so quickly. And then we're just like shell-shocked, like, what? How is this possible? So fast forward a couple of decades, my wife actually made me quit working and go back to school, get a number of semi-worthless degrees, and just trying to figure out what happened. I mean, we're smart people. How did these two intelligent people end up in disaster? I mean, I'm not talking about for a day, a week, a weekend, a month, a year, decades, where we're just living in pain and disconnect, where we just can't figure. I mean, we're just drowning. And then we had kids, and they got us distracted, but we're still missing each other. We're still living in the same house, but we're not connected at all. So that became my mission, eventually my passion, because we figured it out scientifically. We now know what caught, my wife's name is Phyllis. We now know scientifically what causes Phyllis and Glenn to miss each other relationally. And when they do, we don't get a free pass. We wrote a book about this connection thing, but we don't get a free pass. When we use the tools are based on the human condition. This is not a personality profile or a theory or philosophy. It's just as true for Damon as it is for me. And Damon can do it just as well as I can, because it's actually already coded inside of us. And we figured it out, which blows my mind, because Phyllis and I spent literally decades clueless and just missing. Not because we're stupid people, not because we didn't want to be close relationally, not because we weren't trying hard enough. We were exhausted, but we didn't have a clue. And once you have the right tools, I always compare it to somebody trying to get a nail into a board, and they're wearing themselves out, and they really want to build something, and then we find out they're using a toothbrush to try to get the nail in the board. And it's like, well, Rob, you just need to try harder, buddy. You got to get that nail in the board. And Rob's like, I'm exhausted. I am trying my hardest. And then we find out you had the wrong tools. And Phyllis and I had the wrong tools for a long time. And now we have the right tools and we can build, which is really exciting.
That's interesting. So I wonder, go ahead, Rob.
I really want to get to the tools that you're talking about, but I'm so interested and intrigued how you guys got off to such a low start or a bad start.
Well, we were faith-based then. I'm still faith-based now. And we were early purity culture where, you're not allowed to do anything sexual before you're married, which is fine. People can do what they want. I don't care. But we thought that if you did that, then you'd live happily ever after. And God would magically, just help you put tab A into slot B, which we were able to do on our wedding night. But it was not, it was the greatest 11 seconds of my life. So I do want to make that
clear. 11 seconds.
You don't have to laugh at my pain, guys. Come on. But it was incredibly disappointing for my bride. And she was like, wait, what? We waited for years for that? Really? And I'm like, I didn't know I'd married such an ungrateful person. And we were just startled. And so then Phyllis spent the rest of our honeymoon avoiding sex because sex was both physically and emotionally painful for her that first time. And so we did a lot of water skiing on our honeymoon because Phyllis figured out if we're water skiing, none of that sex stuff is going to happen. And literally, we'd have breakfast and I'd be like, hey, babe, you want to, head back to the room? She's like, I think I'm going to head out to the boat. And so we literally, I was pickled by the end of the week. We'd gone to this honeymoon resort that, provide all inclusive package. So we didn't have the tools to talk to each other about that. We'd never talked to anybody before our marriage about sex. Just a general, stick tab A into slot B conversation, but nothing beyond that. So we sure as heck weren't going to talk to anybody after. And so and again, we didn't understand how we had missed each other. We knew I don't even know if we really knew it was about sex. We just knew that she was avoiding me. She was pre-avoiding me. She wanted to make sure that she didn't accidentally end up in a situation where I could grab her boobs or whatever. And so we just were lost from the very beginning. And again, you get back home, we're both working. We just bought a house together. And the days become weeks, which become months, years, and then decades before we really were able to get a clue as far as what happened. Sorry, that's a long answer to a short question, but that's basically what happened. Most of it centered around sex.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer because for those faith-based people like you're talking about, I feel like they may be ill-equipped, and especially when families don't know how to, or the parents might not know how to direct them. I can speak from my personal standpoint. I'm a first-generation Christian, but I can't imagine what my children, second-generation Christians are going to face. And I'm trying to navigate and find a way to speak to them, but not open up their mind so much to introduce them to some stuff that they don't need to process right now. So it's an interesting, subject to navigate. And that's why I'm glad that we have people like yourself.
Rob, I was going to say that a lot of us come from single. I'm talking about myself. I don't know about your background, Dr. Hill, but coming from a single parent background, a lot of us wasn't taught intimacy either by example. Like we never saw daddy smack mama on the butt, say, get over here, girl. Like we don't know. So we haven't seen that. So we don't know how those patterns. So you're right. So you talk about a lot of tools we don't have. A lot of us just don't know,
Yeah. My dad died when I was 8. So I was kind of basically raised by a single mom. And my mom and dad weren't connected relationally before that. They were born in the 20s. grew up in the 30s and didn't have a clue how to connect relationally. I'm one of 6 kids, so obviously they understood tab A.
Yeah, they knew how to do it.
But they didn't know how to connect relationally. They knew how to connect, what they'd be called, through the genitals or something. but they didn't have a clue about relationship. It was just sticking tab A in the slot B, and there you go, you made a baby. But it wasn't a relational thing at all for them, which is really sad.
Yeah. So if you could like talk about some of these tools, because I don't know if this is a misnomer or not, but we kind of like got into a habit of saying what works in my marriage just for my marriage, and whatever works for y'all, that's y'all, whatever. Have you found that the tools are like repeatable? Like, can they be duplicated, these tools that you're talking about?
Well, that'd be a great question for Damon. The connection codes have spread to over 60 nations now, not because we're good marketers, but it's because Damon and Angela experience it. I'm speaking for you, Damon, so wave a flag if I'm way off. But they experience it. They can't help but having lunch with a friend and going, we just kind of experienced some stuff the last few weeks, the last couple months, and this is kind of cool. And the other big thing is, and whoever, Fred and Wilma Flintstone have lunch with Damon and Angie, and they watch them, and they're like, this is a little funky here. Because like at one point, Damon turned to Angie and said, hey, I felt hurt by what you just said. And Angie just oohed him. I got lost there who I was saying which, but anyway, they processed through it in 25 seconds. And Fred and Wilma are watching them going, I don't think I've ever seen that before. Like, she literally said it in the moment. Babe, I felt hurt by what you said. Damon was present with her, didn't argue with her, didn't defend himself, didn't tell her she's stupid to feel that way. And they were just present. And 35 seconds later, they're actually more connected, more bonded relation than they were a minute ago. And Fred and Wilma are watching this going, hey, what kind of drugs are you guys on? Because we want some of that. We need that prescription because it seems like it's working. So then Fred and Wilma become connection coders. Again, not because we're great marketers, but because Damon and Angie, they just observe what they're seeing there. So is it replicatable? Absolutely. My God. And we don't know, we have no way of tracking, but we think we're probably over 100,000 connection coders worldwide now, because it just keeps spreading. And that's because you just share, you watch a great movie. What do? You tell your friends about it the next day. Right. And I'm not going, all right, Ishmael, you need to tell 3 people, about the latest, greatest movie you saw. I can't get him to shut up about it. He's telling everybody because it was a great movie. He loved it. Right. There you go. Just share what works for you.
So, Damon, I'm curious, like, how long did it take for you to notice the change once you started implementing the tools that Dr. Hill gave you?
How long somebody might see a change is probably going to differ from couple to couple or person to person, right? But what you instantly know is, wait a minute, this is a little bit different. And what's different is kind of like what I said before is, you're not sharing all your secrets, all the skeletons in your closet with a stranger, right? And for some people that works. But what he does is give you the tools so that you can process that with the people that you care about in your own setting. And the tools, I guess, I don't want to say anything that maybe misrepresents it, but I can tell you what it meant for me and my wife. It meant, one, she had an opportunity to express herself in a safe place. So oftentimes, one of our spouses might say something to us, hey, you just, I just felt anxiety just because you walked into the room. I got scared. I felt some fear. And our first thing we're going to do is defend that. Like, what are you talking about? I didn't even do anything. And then it spirals out of control. And we've all been in a situation where we've had a disagreement or an argument with a loved one. And whatever that topic is you're arguing about 15 minutes in, all these other topics from weeks or months ago start to become part of the conversation. And that happens because those emotions were never processed from weeks or months ago. So as soon as someone feels hurt in this moment, anything else that caused them hurt they never processed comes back up. right? Now you're in a big argument. And that's what, kind of tears families apart. So for me, it was, hey, she has a safe place to be able to express what she wants. That was key for her. What was key for me is when Dr. Glenn said, if she feels that way just because you walk in a room, that's not your fault. That's not an indictment on you. That doesn't mean I was guilty, right? That just meant that's how she felt. It happened to her, right? So for me as a guy, always being defensive when, your spouse says, hey, this is what you did. And you're like, well, wait a minute, that wasn't my intention. You took it the wrong way. We say all that. And what to do? It gets the situation to become worse. So in those scenarios, she says, hey, I'm feeling some fear, just the way that you just looked at me. And it's like, well, ooh, which is Doc will tell you is always the direct response. You just say, ooh, well, fear, like what's going on with your fear? What did I miss? He'll tell you there's, 3 key phrases. But that gives her a chance to say why she's feeling it. And after she says that, well, hey, you just walked in and you looked like you were upset from work and I was afraid you might start yelling. And then I can just say, ooh, well, what else do you need from me? Which is like the 4th phrase. Hey, well, what do you need from me? I don't have to apologize. I don't have to defend myself and say that's not what I meant, because it's not an indictment. No one's blaming me. It's just something that happened to her. And Doc kind of made a good point to me one time. He said, hey, who wakes up in the morning and decides that they're going to feel fear? You ever wake up and say, I think today I'm going to feel a little bit of fear for breakfast, and then around 12 o'clock for lunch, I'm going to have a little bit of sadness? Right? We don't do that. It just happens to us. The other day, I almost got into a car accident. And for a minute, I felt fear, like your heart jumps, right? That I didn't have time to stop and say, well, wait a minute, it didn't even hit me. Why did I feel like that? It just, these emotions that we have is something that happens to us. And when we don't process them, we talk about it kind of being like a dam. Every emotion you have, you don't process, is like a stick getting stuck. And each one starts to build, and then there's a dam. And then when that dam finally breaks, all those sticks start coming out. All the past stuff that we never processed starts to come back up. So what it's allowed us to do, for me, as far as timing wise, for your question, Ish, was it took a minute for us to work through the emotional dam that my wife had, right? The dam break, like, I had a beaver dam on my property once, and we took some tannerite out there, had some fun, took out some AR-15, blew the whole dam up. Next morning, we go back out there and the dam is back, right? So it takes multiple times to be able to break that dam and relieve that pressure.
Wow.
Dude, you got to put you on payroll. That was an amazing.
I'm about to say, yeah. That boy, good.
Fire that one right there.
So, Dr. Hill, I was going to ask another question I was thinking about was that, do you notice with the people when they implement these tools, like, does success translate in other areas too? Because I feel like a lot of men, for example, like they'll hold on to so much marital trauma or stress, they can't really be successful in the other areas of their life. So can you talk about how you can see like people are able to like get their house in order, and then when they get the house in order, they can conquer the world?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm feeling some guilt here. Is this Joey?
Yeah, Joey. How you doing?
I just feel bad because I'm looking at you, dude, and I haven't even said hello yet.
I was just waiting. Normally, I'm abrupt, so I was going to switch my style up a little bit today. How you doing, Dan?
Supposed to at least say, brother. Well, what the research shows, and every human's unique, so we have to be careful taking data points and saying this is true for this individual. But what the research shows is people are operating at about a 36% capacity level. So we're paying them 100% salary, and they're actually doing about a third. But that's because they're so dysregulated. So in other words, whatever. Glenn has a huge conflict with Phyllis that morning. He gets to work, at 8 or whatever. It's going to be freaking 11 o'clock before he's even thinking clearly enough to be productive. Well, that was over a third of the day gone. Then somewhere around whatever, again, I'm just making this up, but 2:30 in the afternoon, he's thinking, oh shit, I'm going to go back home to that woman that I'm at odds with. And now he's less productive. So the whole day, whatever, it's an 8-hour day. And I probably got about 3 hours of work done. So I'm so much less productive because of all of the tension at home. And then there's tons and tons of things, variables that come into play there. But that was certainly true of me. Phyllis and I are a power couple now, not because we're better than anybody else. It's just because we live connected. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in relationships. What Damon and I can get done together is far more, whatever the task is. I'm moving bricks. It's like, all right, Damon, we got to move this huge pile of bricks. We will get more done in an hour together if Damon likes me, which is questionable, but let's just say he does for me. So if Damon and I are connected in this, just relationally, we will get more done in that hour than if Damon was doing his part of his pile of bricks and I was doing my pile of bricks. So
synergy.
Relationally, and I'm faith-based. I think there's a God designer behind all this. That's just the God truth. And again, even if there is no God, it's still true that we know this now from research. We run people through all sorts of tests, and it's like, dang, Glenn and Damon got a ton done. We thought they'd only get this much done. Well, that's because one person by themselves normally gets this much done. But when he and I are together and we're just laughing and we're cutting up, we just kick ass. We get so much more done because 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. Whenever we're connected relationally. So that's true in any relationship. But yeah, and again, every human's unique, therefore every couple's unique, so you have to be careful. But the vast majority of couples that we work with that get on point with the connection codes, their income increases drastically within about a year and a half. And I sat with a couple last Friday, I think it was, and they have 10x their income in about 2.5 years. They quadrupled it in the first year after because they spent all of their energy fighting. So when they spent all their energy fighting, the brilliant idea that Damon was going to come up with last Thursday, he didn't even think of it because he's at odds with Angie. He's all wrapped in that. He's like, oh, this woman, she drives me crazy. And, whatever. At 3:30 on that Thursday, he was going to come up with this great idea. But he didn't because he had a fight with Angie at 3. So where do you think his mind is? This woman means so much to him. What do you think he's thinking about? Not about this brilliant idea he's going to come up with. And so when we free people up from all this emotional turmoil, this emotional weight that's on them, Damon mentioned the emotional dam. That's one of our Connection Codes protocols, is to live a dam-free life. And my goal is for Damon to live a damn-free life. So his river of emotion is just flowing freely. He still has the emotions, but he processes them literally in 20 seconds instead of 7 hours, which is what we're supposed to do is 3 weeks. So Phyllis and I literally would be at odds for days, weeks at a time. Our disconnects overlapped. We would just stay disconnected for years in a row. And so I'm operating, who knows what, at a 35% capacity. So all this stuff Glenn could have accomplished, he didn't get it done because he's in turmoil internally with his wife. And it just amazes me now. Phyllis and I rarely ever don't process stuff in 30 seconds or less. And if you had said that to me 25 years ago, if you said, hey, dude, this 7-day conflict you've been having with your wife, you could have processed that through in 30 seconds. You'd have been younger than me then, so I could probably got away with it. I'd been like, shut up, you little smart aleck. You think you know so much. Because I wouldn't have believed that. If you had said to me, hey, dude, that conflict could have lasted 30 seconds, I'd been like, you don't know. You're an idiot. You don't know anything. Because I kid you not, we had 10-day conflicts. And to
keep things bottled up.
Math on that, I don't know what the math is, but 30 seconds times this amount equals 10 days. That's a big number. And we spend so much of our life, so much of our time, so much of our energy at odds with each other. So yeah, it affects everything, revolutionizes everything.
That's good. Wow, I'm thinking about, that's a lot of stuff. So tell us about if someone's watching this, like it's the connection codes. Is that what it's called? So like, how can someone like get access to it? Like, what's the website? Like, what if someone's like watching this or thinking like, I'm about to get married. I'm already married. I've been married for, 10 years, 20 years, but I'm still working on stuff because like you said before, people just don't have the right tools. So how can someone like, 'cause this is very like, I mean, from everything you're telling me, and I'm assuming that we talked about people become more productive, translate. I'm also assuming, I don't want to assume, but it sounds like from what you said of your first interaction with your wife on your honeymoon, I would assume intimacy has also increased as well too, because you're not holding on to different things as well, right? So like, how can someone get like connected to this program?
Well, before I say that, because it's so important, part of the research that we now know, and we just learned this about 15, maybe 18 years ago, the brain doesn't distinguish physical and emotional pain. So when Phyllis feels wounded by me emotionally, it's the same as if I'd stabbed her in the arm with an ice pick. Her brain doesn't know. No, her body knows the difference, but her brain doesn't know the difference. So if I stab her in the arm with an ice pick, kick her in the shin, stomp on her foot, punch her in the nose, and then at 7 o'clock that night, I go, "Hey, babe, you want to like get frisky?" Like, well, hell no, I don't even want to be in the same room as you, much less do the most vulnerable thing that I ever do. I don't want you to take my clothes off of me. Are you crazy? I'm still bleeding from when you stabbed me with an eye. I'm like, oh, babe, that was like 10 o'clock this morning. Come on. Don't bear a grudge. Don't be resentful. She's like, I still have an ice pick in my shoulder. Thank you very much. And I am still limping from when you stomped on my foot at 1:30 this afternoon. So it changes everything. And again, I didn't know all this early on. I had no idea that all these woundings had an incredible effect on my partner. And so we were involved sexually very little. Because again, I walk in the room and she instantly feels pain, not based on what I did just now when I walked in the room, but because of what I did earlier today and yesterday and the day before and the week before. So if people go to connectioncodes.co, not .com, but just .co. Go to connectioncodes.co. There's a tremendous amount of free resources there that people can download, see videos and stuff. There also is our masterclass called the Foundations Masterclass, because it's the foundation of building a relationship on top of. My PhD is in sexology, so I'm a clinical sexologist. There's also a masterclass on sexuality, where we break down one of the very first protocols in the late night masterclass is that sex is designed as a party for the female, and the male is invited. And it's a buy one get one free ticket, guys. Don't fret. The party itself is set up around the female. And what we've done for many centuries is we said, "Oh, no. Sex is about the male. It's a chance for him to get his rocks off. She just needs to show up and spread them, just be available, be a sperm receptacle." And so and I've been doing this a long time. I think the vast majority of sexual interactions that women are involved with, they disassociate. Their bodies are there, but they're not even there. They're not engaged. They're not, really involved. And the guy may not even realize it. He may not even know that, oh, she's not even here. She's here. Her body's here, and I like her body, but she's not engaged. She's not involved here. So we really encourage people to do the foundations course first, because it's about emotional connection, and we build dynamic sexual connection on top of deep emotional connection. You can have sexual activity without emotional connection, but you can't have a sexual connection without emotional connection. So we start there with foundations, and then we build sexuality on top of that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You're making my head spin. Like, we could talk forever, but I want to get Rob and Joey. I want to get y'all final thoughts, man, because it's like, I don't want to keep the doctor all night. This is some good. I'm just thinking now because, like, you talk about the people could just be intimate without actually having intimacy. And that's just like, really, that's like kind of like making, just think about like our culture and stuff like that and things that's being promoted as far as like, everyone's talking about the sexual activity, but they're not really experiencing true intimacy and, just sharing trauma. So I thank you so much for shedding that. I appreciate it. I'm going to go check out that website, but Joey, Rob, give your final thoughts.
Go ahead, Rob. You married?
Well, I apologize. Technology had me drop off, so I missed a lot of the conversation. I just was there for the beginning portion of it. But Dr. Hill, I just want to thank you for joining us tonight. Just to shed some light. And as I was talking to Damon, the reason why we wanted to bring you on here is just to kind of shatter some of the misnomers out there about therapy, and just kind of bring some light to the issue, because I feel like men are very hard-headed in the sense that we're not going to let anybody help us. So I appreciate your time, and this is very valuable. And I know to our listeners out there, this is somebody that I trust recommended this gentleman, Dr. Hill. So I hope you check him out.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, me not being the only one that's not married at this time, it is something that I look forward to in the future. I do feel like there's a lot of things that I got to get under wrap before I'm able to make that next move, because it's a scary thing for me. You know what I mean? As far as being in a date, I feel like it's a scary thing, And I haven't seen too many of them flourish. Right? It always looks amazing at the beginning. So, but I don't really have that I really don't have that guideline that would, break things down for me to give me a better understanding of, okay, when things do start looking this way, how do I get back on track, especially without holding grudges and holding on to
connectioncode.co, bro. He done told you. He said the connection code.
That's what I'm saying.
Co,
so I'm glad that there is something like this for people like myself as well. And I was going to ask, but you basically pretty much answered the question. I can see it being beneficial to people that aren't married at this time and would like to build within their relationships and move on to that next step. So we really do appreciate having you on. I wish I'd have caught at the beginning. I know when I first logged on, I looked and I was like, man, they didn't tell me we was gonna have a dude on here from what's that singing show called? What's the country singer's name? You look just like him, Dr.
Oh, Blake Shelton.
He's doing Stefani's husband. I was like, oh, this one is about to do numbers, brother.
Hey, but he got the beard. He kind of got that Hugh Jackman Wolverine looking.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm so much better than Blake. What are you talking about?
Well, thank you, Doctor. We appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Before we let you go, Doc, is there anything, I know we kind of took your mind in a lot of different ways. Is there anything that we haven't connected the dots to today that you wanted to just kind of say in the outro?
Yeah, I guess especially the fact that nobody plans to fail in their relationship. I've never been to a wedding where part of the vows is, hey, baby, we'll be hot in love for 6 months, maybe 2 years, and then our relationship will, dissipate into some level of Shitsville. I've never been to that wedding. I go to a lot of weddings. So this is not an intention issue. We and most marriage therapy basically said, oh, well, you just need to have a better intention and you need to try harder. People already have great intentions. They're not marrying just as a practical joke. They married because, and every wedding I've been to, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a dream of a lifetime. And they're trying their hardest. It's not because they're idiots, and it's not because they're not trying hard enough. They simply don't have the tools. They don't know. And that's our whole objective. That's our goal, is to get people the tools so they can get that nail into the board. You hand them a hammer, and they're like, well, shoot, this is a heck of a lot easier once I have the right tools. And Phyllis didn't have the right tools for over 2 decades. And so we looked like morons, trying to connect because we had no idea how to do that. So I just want to make sure people know it's not because you're stupid that you're not doing well. It's because you don't have the right tools. And it's not an intention thing. It's not an effort thing. And culturally, for, again, centuries, it's not a new development. For centuries, we have not equipped people very well. And then they end up drowning, or it's like, well, what the heck? Another one bites the dust. And we don't stop to go, hey, let's revamp this thing,
right?
And help people know from the beginning how to do this successfully.
A couple final thoughts for me is this. Number one, I'm the type of person that likes to learn from other people's mistakes. I don't like to experience them myself. So it is great to have somebody who has gone through the storms and be able to share the tools that was able to help him in his marriage, right? Because the second thought is we got to change the narrative, man. 1 out of every 2 marriages end up in divorce. We got to do better. We can do better than that. And as Dr. Glenn was saying, that's not the intention. We go to the altar making a lifelong commitment. And unfortunately, 1 out of every 2. I believe that's still the statistic, right?
Yeah. Well, I won't have time to get into that, but I would argue that it's a lot worse than that. The research, our data points say that 91% of couples self-report that their relationship is unsuccessful. So, in other words, we just asked them, "Are you living what you had hoped for on your wedding day?" And almost everybody goes, "Nah, not really." We're not going to file the legal paperwork that says we're divorced, but we're divorced. We're not married. And Phyllis and I were divorced for many, many years, even though we were legally married, even though we were living at the same address. Relationally, if marriage is about a relationship, well, then divorce is about the loss of that relationship. So, Phyllis and Glenn were divorced. I mean, practically speaking, we never filed the paperwork. And that's not my goal, is to get people to file the paperwork. I want to get them married. I want them to actually be connected. And I'm, again, stunned that that's even possible, because I'm fairly old. I mean, I'm 62, and we're starting to get good at this thing. But it's only the last 10 years. We were the slow kids in the group, so far behind. And I want people to get it even before they're married. Joey, I commend you that you have that mentality. Says, I want to be on point from the beginning. I don't want to meander through Shittsville for 9 years and then eventually get good at it. You don't have to. You don't have to live in this brutal. Because I'm telling you, there's nothing worse on the planet than bad marriage. I mean, it's worse than cancer. Because cancer, you're trying to get rid of the cancer. Bad marriage is like, well, I don't want to really get rid of her, but I can't stand being with her. What I'm going to do. And it's just a brutal. And marriage is 24/7, and it's pretty intense. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. This is amazing.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Appreciate you.